When I heard that Look Back was getting an anime adaptation, I went, I have finished 3 manga. 4 according to my anime list. That's impressive for the amount of times I've claimed illiteracy. But of those 4, Look Back alone has hit me harder than even some of my favorite anime ever could. The story means a lot to me, and I loved watching so many others experience it for the first time. And with the movie out now, I can't not talk about it, but that also means talking about spoilers. So if you haven't already seen the movie or read the manga, it's a short watch and a shorter read. You can't go wrong either way, I promise. And with that out of the way, let's talk about Fujino has been drawing for as long as she could remember. All the way up through the 4th grade, she'd garnered the praise of teachers, family, and friends alike, even drawing manga for the school paper. It's the same way I'm sure a lot of us got that first glimpse into our own passions when we were little. It feels good, it makes everyone happy, might as well keep doing it. Needless to say, Fujino is a child. And by that I mean she's annoying. You'll notice that Look Back introduces its characters with their flaws at the forefront. Just like with Chainsaw Man, where Denji is introduced as awkward, primal, and maybe just a little bit down bad, Fujino is about as prideful as Vegeta or Zuko, and she's got the ego to match. When you first meet her, she's kinda got that little cousin vibe going on, you know what I mean. She makes you want to beat her in a foot race. Not that I run that fast, just fast enough to beat a 4th grader, just saying. Similarly, Kyomoto's introduced through Fujino's teacher because she's too scared to come to school at all, but she wants to try her hand at drawing manga anyway. So Fujino reluctantly gives up a manga slot, but not before talking mad shit about Kyomoto. This would make Fujino look really stupid if Kyomoto was, and she's cracked at art. Kyomoto's art makes Fujino's look like a 4th grader drew it, and her classmates are quick to point that out when they can shut up at any time. Fujino is disgusted and offended. She's the artist here. All of those years of praise from her family and friends said so. So the first thing she does is sit down, Google how to get better at art, and focus in. Her sketchbooks begin to pile up as her resources become more pointed. From simple shapes to anatomy and perspective, Fujino sinks further and further into the chasm of pencil and paper. Obsession begins to take hold. Fujino works hard to improve, with her pride as an artist on the line. You watch as the world around her becomes tiny. The laughter of friends, the warmth of family, these moments fade into the background in her pursuit of great art, and yet the grind feels anything but rewarding. This is how Look Back conveys struggle both as an artist and a competitor. It's something that takes over your life on a whim, and if something doesn't feel productive enough for you anymore, you block that shit out. It doesn't matter unless it's making you better. Now, apply that level of obsession to video games. You see where I'm going with this. If you aren't already at the top, then people are probably gonna look at you funny. It's demoralizing to be the only one who takes it seriously, and Fujino wasn't even close to Kyomoto's level. That is a feeling I wasn't expecting to be thrown back in my face with so much clarity. Fujino's obsession was the kind that pushes passion to its absolute limit, and Fujino's was waning fast. By the time we see her again, Fujino's a husk of her former self. Her eyes are lifeless, and she's utterly devoid of that spark, that humble-bragging bullshit that once lit up the room, and the first to notice is everyone. Everyone knows it from day one, but the first to speak up about it is a classmate at school. Her family follows. Fujino pauses and lets those words sit, and it sucks. It may come from a place of concern, but those questions carelessly dismiss everything Fujino's been working toward. If you've sunk time into the things that you loved before, then these questions might be twisting an old knife that's been stuck inside you for years, and Fujino is experiencing that feeling for the first time. By the time she's about halfway through the 6th grade, she's had it. Fujino takes one last look at the school paper, sees that Kyomoto's art is still worlds ahead of her own, and she gives up. Fujino returns to the real world, to her friends and family, and for a while, things are just normal. She doesn't even hear about Kyomoto again until the end of the year when her teacher asks her to bring Kyomoto her graduation certificate. So of course, Fujino gets all, I don't want to do it, but she agrees to do it anyway. A mix of annoyance and apprehension swirls around as Fujino approaches enemy territory. Inside, she sees the mountains of sketchbooks lining the path to Kyomoto's room, and the gears start turning in her head. Hey, this was never a fair fight at all. Oh, so long as I can draw a stick, you don't call my mom here. That'll show her. Hey, who the fuck is in my... Hey, wait a minute, this is actually kind of funny. Fujino runs, and then walks, in that order, so she doesn't get far, and Kyomoto's not about to pass that up. Fujino slowly looks back, don't you yet. She's expecting some kind of confrontation, but what she sees isn't the rival that stumped her out of the school paper. It's her biggest fan. Kyomoto kept a close eye on Fujino's work, even noting her rapid improvement in the 5th and 6th grade. Kyomoto thinks she's a manga genius. Suddenly, the sketchbook she filled, the late nights and hours lost, all in favor of that relentless grind, weren't for nothing. Fujino walks back home as rain begins to trickle down around her, and suddenly she adds this little hop to her step. And then another, and soon enough, it's become this funny little skip down the street. Her face is all scrunched up despite herself as this incomprehensible yet overwhelming whirlpool of emotions swell. I mean, after all, the manga prodigy she thought was untouchable had admired her work all along. All that drawing was worth something. For the first time in forever, she sprints up to her room, excited to start her next big manga project just to show Kyomoto. This is the moment Fujino decided to start drawing again, and this time, she wouldn't do it alone. The next time we see them, Fujino and Kyomoto have teamed up to work on their first full-fledged manga, and the connection is immediate. Their art brings out the best in each other, and they even win some prize money from their first manga contest. This joins the two at the hip. Fujino's immediate reaction is to go out and spend recklessly. Luckily, they are not gamers, gamblers, or sneakerheads, so it's okay. They watch movies, they look at books, sometimes they even read those books. Anything two kids with more money than they know what to do with do. In the same way that Fujino brings her out of her room and shows her the real world, Kyomoto brings this fresh, rejuvenating light to a grind that once felt isolating and dull. They don't just draw together, they grow together, inspire each other, and become so much more than just the sum of their parts. These are the moments that turn their partnership into something that feels genuine and real, and before either of them know it, they're being serialized at 17 years old. A whole fucking career at 17 years old, you fucking kidding me? Through a lot of hard work tempered by their shared joy and laughter, this little dream of theirs was finally going to become a reality. But they'd been doing this manga thing together since middle school, and things have a funny way of changing as you slowly take those first steps into your own. Kyomoto wants to step away for a moment, not forever, probably, but she wants to attend art school, get better, and try standing on her own 2 feet for once. But Fujino isn't having it, and she says some not-so-savory things as if to clap back at Kyomoto for what feels like a betrayal. She isn't just losing a background artist here, Fujino's losing the only person that ever understood and validated her work, and she didn't want to see her go. But that didn't make what she said sting any less, and the regret that follows is immediate. I don't know if this scene was done through CGI or rotoscope or just plain animation, but the body language here couldn't paint a clearer picture. She'd just broken Kyomoto's heart, and she knows it. Despite the bitterness, Fujino's concerns were coming from a place of love, but the damage is already done, and the two go their separate ways. After Kyomoto leaves, Fujino relapses. It's radio silence between them now, and all Fujino can really do is draw. So she draws, and she draws, and she draws, but it all feels eerily hollow now in a way that pushes her back to the 5th grade. She writes Chainsaw Man but with a shark and begins chasing Reddit gold in manga rankings, and for a little bit, it works. Shark Kick blows up and even gets an anime adaptation, but that hollow feeling lingers. She's gone through multiple assistants and now spends her time drawing in the dark, restlessly. She's surrounded by success, but somehow it all feels so distant, and just when she thinks it can't get any worse.
Tragedy struck this afternoon at the art college in Yamagata City when a man began attacking a number of students with what authorities are calling a pickaxe.
Kyomoto is killed in an incident at her art college, and Fujino's world crumbles. Before she even realizes it, she's dragged herself back to Kyomoto's home in this stupor of disbelief, regret, and ultimately hopelessness. But when she finds the old manga strip she drew, something inside her slips. Fujino tears up her old manga strip, connecting dots that aren't even there, and blames herself for Kyomoto's death. She's the one who drew the manga that day. She's the one who got Kyomoto out of her room, but in the end, all her manga did was get her killed. This isn't just hopelessness anymore. This is a pure, visceral hatred for drawing itself. A piece of the torn up manga slips under Kyomoto's door, and suddenly we're taking a look back at the start of the story had Kyomoto never met Fujino. This is the moment that gives us what might be the most raw, unfiltered take on grief and regret ever. Fujino never goes back to drawing, and she never even gets Kyomoto out of her room. This is her perfect world, the one where every decision she makes is the right one. If you've ever wanted to wish away that fucking cringe moment from a few years ago, that's what's going on here. But grief has a way of twisting and molding that into something messy and irrational. Kyomoto still finds the strength to leave her room, and she still finds herself enrolling in art school, but this time, on the day of the attack, Fujino's prepared to make that heroic rescue. She saves Kyomoto, gets back into drawing, and finally reaches that happy ending, but that couldn't be further from reality. I've had plenty of moments where I just kind of sit and wonder what would happen if you just had a gut feeling one day, wonder what would happen if you made that phone call just to be sure, and suddenly, just like Fujino, you are letting out this sigh of relief, basking in the world and life you might have saved, but you didn't. You couldn't. You never could have known what was gonna happen that day, but that's not a reason to blame yourself. Eventually, Fujino finds her way back to the real world and then takes one final look back. She sees all the time she spent drawing with Kyomoto and every time she managed to make her smile. Fujino remembers that the days she spent with Kyomoto were good ones and makes the decision to keep drawing for her sake, even if it means she'll be all alone, just like she was back in the 5th grade. Because for Fujino, that's what makes drawing worthwhile. It's through these desperate moments imbued with this quiet strength that Look Back's writing is able to thrive. These aren't just portrayals anymore, it comes right out and tells you that this is what grief is and this is what it looks like. And that's how it manages to ignore that fourth wall and speak directly to you and me. I mean, there's a reason why so many videos, comments, and reviews about this story are bathed in personal anecdotes. This is Fujimoto's open letter as much to himself as it is to anyone who chooses to read it. It's a way to come to terms with choosing to draw in a world that uses pain and hardship to question its value. But tragedy is inevitable and hopelessness doesn't make it your fault. And in the same way, just because drawing can't prevent disaster doesn't mean it's useless. That's what makes this story so beautiful. It takes you through the ugliest sides of passion, tragedy, and regret, and yet even in that darkness, Fujino still finds hope. Her manga continued to uplift and inspire Kyomoto even after she left all that time ago. That's meaning, and sometimes that's all we need to keep going.